Organization, I mean all the other institutions, public and private, that are formalized, that are not part of the educational system. And again, there are all kinds of knowledge-sharing activities that take place. In fact, some management people would argue that you can't have an organization without knowledge-sharing, or maybe a knowledge-sharing is the lifeblood of what an organization is all about. So, I ask people to talk about that as some form of knowledge management. And then there's a third kind of basic context that is society. So just our individual interactions, or sometimes with a group, it might be through some sort of organization that we belong to, it might just be through friends. But we do a significant amount of knowledge sharing just by talking to each other. So there's the societal aspect. And the idea is that if you think about these different, go over here, think about these different boundaries between these contexts, it's very difficult to cross those boundaries. But as social learning software specialists, what we want to do is help to create software that sort of fits right in that blue spot. It allows individuals and groups to share knowledge across those various contexts or boundaries. So that's the overall goal of our lab. If you think about social learning software, there are many different kinds. I've listed a significant set of them here. There may be more. I call the big four: blogs, wikis, discussion forums, and friendware. And then there are other examples of social software all the way through gaming and educational systems like e-portfolios, course management systems. I'll talk about e-portfolios in a few minutes. So, okay, I'll step a little bit aside and say that I'm also doing some work with a former student of mine, a fellow named Munir Manviwala. He's the chair of the Management Information Systems Department and in the business school at Temple University in Philadelphia in the United States. And Munir and I worked together when he was doing his dissertation. I chaired his dissertation. And what he was doing then was looking at support of group activities through IT, through software. And so we've sort of maintained that interest. And over the last long period of time, because of the way our paths have gone, and all the administrative work I've done, and then all the administrative work that he's ended up taking on, we've sort of stopped working together. But when I retired as dean, I contacted him and I said that, I'd really like to get back to working with him, because we always had a good working relationship, had a number of publications. He's a great ideas person. So anyway, as a first step, we wrote a paper that I don't know if it's going to get published yet. It's in the reviewing process. But we called the paper, "The Course is Dead, Long Live the Community." And that was his idea. The idea that we wanted to get across was this. It's very simple, but it relates back to that blue button. The idea is that if you look at the educational context as one example, the way we use IT is effectively to try and improve the way we've always done education, or the way we've done it over the last fairly long period of time. And that is to what we call first-order learning. First-order learning is improving what you already have, making it more efficient. So if you bring IT into the educational process, and you do it right, you certainly can make it more efficient. You can make it easier for students to exchange documents with faculty. You can provide grades online. You can have course management, syllabi online with links, all that kind of stuff. But it's still essentially doing pedagogy, teaching, in the same way that we've always done it, just with IT. So we argue that there's a flaw in that course-centric model, because IT can do a lot more. And then we talk about what we call second-order learning, which is to say there's another way to think about education outside of just the course model. Now we don't say the course is this, kind of a fallacy, because we don't argue that we should get rid of courses. I mean, you'd have to then think about third order learning. Is the educational system really set up in a particular way that will facilitate the best kind of, outcomes for the world, for a nation, whatever. So maybe doing things course by course isn't the right way to do things. But we're not arguing that. We're saying even within that context, we can still change the way we improve learning. And that's this idea of trying to break through those barriers and facilitate lifelong learning. I mean, it's a pretty standard term. Lifelong learning kind of implies that people will keep learning throughout their time in the educational institution, at work, in their social activities. So trying to facilitate that is important, and trying to build that model at the educational level is important. So we don't want to people shouldn't start lifelong learning once they graduate from college. They should be doing it, preferably doing it early. And in fact, another thing we don't really address in the paper we thought of a lot is that if you look at most people who are, let's say, under 25, I don't know, just as a guess, then they have the technical capability to be doing lifelong learning, and they may be doing it to some extent. They're good with mobile devices, they understand the gaming context, they know what the internet is and how to navigate it. So we have a set of students coming through our educational system who aren't afraid of technology and easily could be integrated into a second order learning state. So anyway, our conclusion in the paper is that it's important to break down the barriers to achieve this second order learning. And also in the paper, we discussed some pretty simple principles that would have to apply to make this happen. The ones on the left are really knowledge sharing principles, and the ones on the right are really human-computer interaction principles or usability ideas. And I'm not going to go into them in detail, but the idea is that essentially what you want to do is allow people to be parts of communities in a very simple manner. Communities shouldn't be hierarchical. They should be flat, sort of each community can be its own essence. And a community could be anything from a course to a set of courses to, in the educational setting, to a group of students who have a common interest, to people who have common interests across educational settings, across disciplines, across universities, across whatever. So we talked quite a bit about this in the paper.